Hi, this is Zach here with the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zach's Traders Cafe for Monday the 3rd of July, and the FTSE slowly gaining traction after the bearish divergence that we had. We had the lower low for the end of June, but higher RSI trace. We've got a rising 200-day moving average, that's around 75.40. Above that, we're looking for a break of that April resistance line around 76.10, and then up to the, retesting June resistance, 76.90 or so. On the downside, not really expecting much below the much below the 74.50 area, which was the initial June support. So let's see if that pans out. The other point to note is that the RSI is still below neutral 50. It hasn't been above 50 since the beginning of May. So breaking back above neutral 50 would then put us in a more bullish type of frame of mind. On to the DAX, which I'm guessing is a stronger play than the FTSE. It has been since I suppose the end of last week, with the gap higher that we had. If I try and keep those trend lines stable, we had an unfilled gap to the upside last week, and that completed a bear trap island reversal. So that was a solid and strong setup there for the market. Above the 50-day line around 15,900, looking for an easy retest of last month's resistance around 16,300. Big picture target maybe for the end of next month up to 17,000 plus at the top of that rising trend channel from September. RSI at 56, which is right in the box seat in terms of continuing to a recovery and continuing on the upside. So let's see if the DAX can play ball. On to the Dow, which is obviously looking at the Independence Day celebrations, but we had a nice end to last week, unfilled gap to the upside through the April resistance line from last year at 34,000, and it should mean that we're ready when we come back from the holiday to hit 35,000 at the top of that March rising trend channel. Downside at the moment not seen as being anything lower than the 50-day line, 33,600, and RSI at 62 after a nice bounce off neutral 50, which as I said with the DAX, tends to work as a decent continuation signal in such recoveries. On to Bitcoin, and here we're still in that bull flag. We regard it as a bull flag, largely above the 30,000 level, looking for that June resistance line projection as high as 35,000 as soon as the end of this month, when this eventually resolves. We've been here for 2 weeks in this bull flag, so it's quite a long time. Rising 50 and 200-day moving averages, adding momentum to the idea that we're going to push to the upside, and this would be a mid-move consolidation. 25,000 to 30,000, the first leg of that recovery, and then looking for the same again up to 35,000, as I said, by the end of this month, and that would be quite a coup for the bulls of the crypto area, given that we'd be more than half the price of the peak around 68,000, so anything over 34,000, a win for the crypto fans. On to the small caps, and it's glory all around really, with most of the calls that have been made recently winning and winning well. Initial target here with Cloudbreak around 0.72. After that we were looking for 1.1, which has been achieved on Friday, just in a day, which is rather remarkable. And above 1.1 pence, now looking for 1.8 pence as soon as the end of this month. While we're above the 200-day line at around 0.98, we call it 1 pence, then we are expecting this market to keep, or this stock to keep on rising, backed by that bullish divergence line, which turned the shares around last month. Onto a stock which is not in quite such a good state of mind, at least technically, Canadian overseas. But the first signs of at least an intermediate recovery here. We've seen the shares down to an RSI near the 10 level, which is ultra oversold. And we're just about breaking that line of resistance from last month, around 2.75 pence. End of day above 2.75, and we could be heading up to the 50-day moving average as high as 4.4 pence. If you're less enthusiastic, you'd probably just be looking for resistance on the way down around the 3.25 pence level. But today's candle looks very strong indeed, and it looks as though basically we had a slight bear trap there from below the late June support that we had there, below 2 pence rather, on Coppel. On to Eurasia, which came up with an interesting update today. interesting maybe from both the bullish and the bearish perspective, but we had a bit of a rug pull on Friday, and the share seemed to have bounced back from that. Still got that line of resistance there from September, and the main level to break here, 3.4 pence, and that's probably the easiest thing to wait for. End of day close about 3.4, then we'll be looking for 4.5. Obviously, if it doesn't happen, then we're still stuck in this slow drift that we've had for the best part of a year. Nice to see a new stock on the move, Future Metals, and here the shares backed by bullish divergence, an extended bullish divergence line from March. The breakout was on Friday, if you were very keen and following the stock, but I don't follow the stock that keenly. So we've broken that falling wedge. Initial target, obviously in these situations, the 50-day line, which has been hit above the 50-day line on an end-of-day close basis, so 2.6 pence plus. We could be looking at 4.5 pence by the end of next month, and hopefully this will surprise on the upside. The only other level to look at is just around 2.9 pence, which was March support on the way down, so that might be an initial block for the shares, but shares have done very well there, and ideally they stay bullish in our minds while we're above June resistance at 2.4. So we want to stay above that level while we try and search for a recovery. On to a stock which people seem to be quite fascinated by at the moment, Fusion Antibodies rather. Here looks like we're in a rising trend channel off the low, and making progress there. The previous peak there around just below the 10 pence level. We need to have an end of day close above that. The initial target would then be around 11 pence at the top of that channel. Best case scenario, if we break 11 with a bang, would be up to the 50-day line, currently around 19 pence. But early days on that, and we really do need to clear 10 pence quite strongly. If you're cautious on the shares, which one or two people might be, wait for the RSI to break above neutral 50 versus 41 at the moment, so that would be another continuation signal, or at least a recovery signal for the shares. While we're below that, then we could still have the chance of a setback. One of the stocks which has behaved itself very well over the recent past, most of the ones I've been looking at today have, is Invinity. We had an initial target around 49 pence. Above that, the target was 64 pence, and today we seem to be on our way to that. I won't upgrade the target just yet, just in case I jinx it, but 64 pence at the moment. Hopefully over the next couple of weeks. We've got the 50 and 200-day lines now rising as well, so that is helpful and adds confidence to the call of a retest, basically, of that peak that we had back in December. Moving along to a stock in the news, which I think did the right thing. Novacyt buying into Eurogene, and here we've had another break higher, which is, I suppose, not surprising given the way that this does look like quite an exciting deal. Falling wedge break, and that was broken at 38 pence. At the moment, while we're above the 50-day line at 42 pence, looking for a target as high as 63 pence by the end of next month. If you're less enthusiastic, then maybe it's to the upper 50s and filling that gap there at around 56 pence. That was back in April. On to a stock which I haven't covered for years, largely because it's been in a bear run, but looks like Optibiotix is finally deciding to deliver a bit of a recovery. One of our favourite signals is a gap close, and we had that on Friday, closing above the that exhaustion gap there from the end of last month, around 6 3/4 pence. We've now broken through the 50-day line, which is our sort of default initial target, and above that 50-day line at 8 3/4, looking for as high as 13 pence by the end of the month. So let's see if Optibiotix can finally step up to the plate. A new name which is doing well already, almost on the quiet, Oneiro, and Oneiro Energy. Here it looks as though we've got a rising trend channel, which has been in place since the shares launched in around 5-6p back in April, or rather in May. Above the floor of the channel there at 9.6 pence. Looking for a target here as high as 16 pence by the end of this month, maybe much more, given the way that we've gapped up today. It could be the case that the shares are actually making a beeline for a resistance line there that I've just drawn now at up to 18 pence, but 16 pence the initial target by the end of this month, while we're above the 10 pence area. Good to see Premier African regain some of its losses. It was looking pretty dire, I have to say, over the recent past, but the gap down through the 200-day moving average very painful. We were suggesting that the shares as a best case could get up to the bottom of the gap there, 0.49. The view now is that while we're above 0.49, and with today's gap to the upside, we could actually head up to the 200-day moving average at 0.62. That calling it any higher than that may be a bit ambitious at this time, but the shares have made good ground, even though the RSI is actually still quite low. It's only at 42, so there is a chance even of filling that gap up to 0.7 for people who, as I said, have been caught out. Only back below the floor of the gap today, 0.46, really delaying the potential on the upside or the recovery there for Premier African. Moving along to Prospex, which is slowly gaining traction. The reason I'm including the shares today is that we've broken above the neutral 50 RSI level for the first time since mid-April, and all that's missing now really is proper clearance of that 50-day moving average at 8.7 pence. Above that, looking for the 200-day line at 11, then, and hopefully by the end of next month as high as 13 pence, and that falling price channel top from back in November. But looking pretty solid now above the 7.5 pence for Prospex. Star of the show today, I think for many days, has been Predator Oil and Gas. Here the shares, as was noted, have managed to rise despite all the fundraisers and everything else. Very, very impressive indeed. One of the rules of the stock market is to look out for shares that have risen after placings or pretty quickly after placings. Here we had our target around 15 pence, best case scenario target up to 18, and hopefully we'll see that over the next couple of weeks, or maybe even sooner, given the current rate of progress. At this stage, only really back well below that old peak there from June, 13.3 pence, really delaying the prospect of a target up to 18, but we're hoping that we'll stay above 15, and backed by the golden cross last week between the 50 and 200-day moving averages. Just a couple to go now. First one is Tintra, which is looking particularly interesting, actually, it has to be said. Rising trend channel base, that's been in place since the end of March, and a beautiful hammer candle on Friday, which broke a line of resistance from May. That was around 82 pence. We've now touched the 50-day line, an end-of-day close above the 50-day line at 90 pence or more. Could take us up to as high as £1.30 at the top of that channel by the end of next month, and you're only risking down to 82 pence for that potential gain. The RSI is also pushed through neutral 50 at 53, so that is also a plus. Finishing off with Thor Explorations, which had a glowing write-up in the Mail on Sunday, Midas column yesterday. That's managed to get it back off the floor of that rising trend channel from February last year and above the 50-day moving average. Hopefully we'll have some traction this time and head up to 23 pence by the end of next month. If we're really lucky, I suppose, might be by the end of this month, with the market licking its lips about the lithium asset that the company is now involved in. That's it for me today. More updates tomorrow.